This video is brought to you by Grandeur Warranty, your #1 online source for factory-backed extended warranties in the country.
Welcome to beautiful and sunny Puerto Rico, where we have the opportunity to get our first time behind the wheel in the brand new 2026 Honda Passport. This is specifically a trail sport, and in today's video we're going to show you all the features on this vehicle, talk about how much it costs, and tell you how it drives. Now, this being a trail sport, we've parked it on some sand for you to do our static portion of this video, and if you want to see how this vehicle performs off-road, we did get a chance to take it on a light trail, and that video is going to be over on TFL Off-Road. But for today's video and for street driving and all the features, let's start real quick on the exterior of this vehicle. There are 3 trims available on the new Honda Passport. The base is called the RTL, but the upper 2 trims are Trail Sport models. This is the middle of the road Trail Sport, and above it is the Trail Sport Elite that gets you all the same off-road features, but a few more luxury items. Now, some of the off-road features that you get include these recovery points up here at the front, and there's been some creative engineering involved in making this also conform to crash safety standards. These are highly visible and very accessible, which is nice to have. We've also got some pretty decent skid plating underneath for when this vehicle runs out of ground clearance, because there's only 8.3 inches of ground clearance, and that's going to be one of the limiting factors of this vehicle off-road. But coming around the side, we have something that's very good, even for just going a little way off the beaten path like we are right now on the beach. We've got these General Grabber all-terrain tires set on an 18-inch wheel. There's a few different wheel options that Honda is offering for this car, and a couple of them are really cool. This one is kind of a rugged, modern-looking design, but they've got a few other designs that I even prefer. One that's got kind of a phone dial shape to it with circular cutouts, and a couple wheels that you can also get in white to add a little bit of contrast if your vehicle's body color isn't white, because of course there's a whole slew of different colors that you could get for this vehicle as well. Coming along the side, we've got some plastic cladding and pretty substantial roof rails, and then around the back a very steep drop off to give this a little bit more of that traditional 4x4 shape. These Trail Sport models do come standard with a hitch in the rear, which you can also use as your recovery point. And if you do plan to tow, as it says right there, your maximum trailer weight, 5,000 pounds. And then we've got our 7-pin connector here at the rear as well. Powering the Passport is a 3.5-liter V6. So, a little old school. It's not a turbo 4-cylinder, and we kind of like seeing some of that variety. 285 horsepower, 262 pound-feet of torque, so pretty healthy power output, and a 10-speed automatic transmission that is all run through an IVTM4 all-wheel drive system, and that's an updated system. This all-wheel drive system has been around for a little while. We've tested it on our slip test, and once we get one of these back in Colorado, we'll test it as well with the updates that they've made to the all-wheel drive. But they say, Honda says, that they can send up to 70% of the power to the rear and 100% of that power to either rear wheel. We've definitely seen this system work really well in the past, and they say it's now got 40% more torque capacity than it had in the past, and that's about 30% more responsive. Inside of the Passport, we have a few specific Trail Sport branded items, like the headrest here on the seats. We've got orange accents as well, and it says Trail Sport on the mats. And from the rest of the interior, we get a lot of what we expect from any modern Honda car. So we do have physical controls for the climate, which is always a nice thing to have versus tap-sensitive buttons. These are real buttons, old school, which is pretty nice. We've also got heated seats here. If you do opt for a Trail Sport Elite, you'll get heated and ventilated seats, as well as a heated steering wheel. We've got a 10.2-inch screen in front of the driver, but an even better looking 12.3-inch screen in the center of the dash that does have Google integration like some of Honda's other products. And I think that the center screen looks better than the screen in front of the driver, especially when you see them side by side. This just seems like a higher contrast, better quality, more modern screen. But both of them give you a lot of really good information, and they are configurable. Wireless charger, a 12-volt 2 USB-Cs. We also have a very sizable sunroof that extends all the way into the back seats, which is always a nice thing to have, especially when you're at the beach. All right, sport mode in the Passport, giving it throttle. V6 actually has some pretty good induction noise as it pulls in air. It's not a bad sounding engine, especially in a world of a lot of turbocharged 4 cylinders. The V6 naturally aspirated has a little bit of character to it, and a 10-speed transmission here, so you do have a lot of ratios. That's going to be nice if you're going off-road because you don't have a low range here, so that gives you a few more gearing options, or if you are pulling a trailer, the 10-speed is going to, once again, give you a lot more gearing options to help you move that load along, especially if you live at high elevation with some steep grades like what we have back home in Colorado. Now, handling with the Passport is very Honda-like. Honda has a really good rep for making vehicles of all shapes and sizes drive very car-like. So whether you're in a Ridgeline or something like this Passport or a CR-V, they all drive like what the majority of people in the majority of situations tend to like their cars to drive like. Once again, very car-like. I wouldn't dislike it if this vehicle was a little bit more floaty with a softer suspension, being that it is a more aggressive trim. Honda's calling this their Halo off-road model, and I think it would be okay with a suspension that's not quite as tight on the street as this. But when the going does get twisty, this car has a McPherson strut front suspension and a multi-link rear suspension that keeps things very much in line. And if you live on a lot of twisty roads, this car is going to handle that just fine. Jumping into the backseat of the Passport, we do have our own climate vents, a bigger outlet right here, 150 watts, 2 USB-Cs. We don't have our own climate controls like we get on the Trail Sport Elite, and then room here in the back seat is not bad at all. I've got plenty of headroom at 5'10" and still plenty of leg room, so it's a comfortable place to spend some time. Opening up the power rear lift gate, we can check out the trunk. It's a decently sizable trunk, and to demo that, we've got a few of our camera bags, 44 cubic feet of space when the seats are folded up, but if you lay them flat, 83.5 cubic feet of space. There is some storage underneath as well, cubbies that you can use for whatever you want to stash down there. But what's really cool that you can get for the trunk on the Passport that this one doesn't have is a platform. You can take it out completely, stick some legs on it, and have a table. That's right, the table is back. If you're a fan of the first generation Honda CR-V that came with a Honda branded table, they've brought it back here on the Passport. If you're a geek like I am, that's kind of a cool thing that they have. And that table also has a topographical map design over the top of it, so it's a pretty cool piece. Now, we've also got these cubbies here on the side that at the moment just has a blank plastic cover, but you can fit with Molly panel if you want to accessorize and fit some things to the sides of the trunk. We've also got another outlet here in the trunk, which is again pretty useful. Underneath the load floor, we do have a compact spare. It is possible for you to get a full-size spare, especially if you plan to do a lot of trail driving, but that full-size spare takes up a decent amount of space. Also kind of a cool Easter egg at the front of this compartment. They've got a little mountain design. It looks pretty cool. Since this car does have a slightly more aggressive all-terrain tire, I'm actually pretty happy with the tire choice and how aggressive it is. You do get a little bit of tire noise. It's not anything that I would say is massively distracting, but it is worth keeping in mind. If this is something that you're buying as a family vehicle and a daily driver, you'll hear those tires spinning under you. I like the visibility on this car for driving around on the street. However, the boxy hood on this vehicle when you're off-road can block a little bit of your visibility, and there's a pretty extensive suite of camera views that you can get on this vehicle to help make up for that a little bit. But if you want to see how all that works when you're out on a trail off the beaten path, check out our video on TFL Off-Road. Honda actually carved an off-road path through the jungle for us to test these vehicles on, and it's a really cool spot. Now, most modern cars are not what we would call cheap, and if you want to protect your investment for the long term, we recommend checking out Grainger warranties. Grainger is one of the biggest providers of factory-backed extended warranties, and that means that you can not only have OEM trained technicians, but they will use correct factory parts when they repair your vehicle. And that warranty covers not only the powertrain, but your electronics and anything else that you can think of from nose to tail. Click on the link below and save an average of $1,000 by getting yourself a Grainger warranty. Now, if you look at the bottom of this hood, one thing that you won't see is a pass-through for this, what appears to be a vent on the hood. So this is just a styling piece, but actually you can see where the actual intake is, and it's right here above the grille. Now, I also want to mention that if you do get the Trail Sport version of the Passport, you are going to take a little bit of an MPG hit. So the standard RTL does get 19 MPG city versus 18 MPG on this, so 1 MPG hit there. On the highway, it's 2 MPG hit, so this gets 23 instead of 25, and the combined is just, again, 1 MPG difference, combined 20 on the Passport Trail Sport versus 21 on the RTL. All things considered, the Passport is a great all-arounder, especially if you live in potentially rugged terrain like where we're based out in Colorado. There are a lot of trails and trailheads that you could go use this Passport to get to and then have a very easy time daily driving this vehicle and living with it on the 99% of times when you're just out on paved roads. These are relatively expensive vehicles. Even the base model RTL is pretty well equipped, and that's the reason that they start, including destination, at $46,200. So it's definitely not the cheapest vehicle in Honda's lineup, and if you get a Trail Sport Elite model, then you can spec them easily into the mid $50,000 range. So they do get pretty pricey, but once again, there's a lot of features on these vehicles that come as part of that. Let me know what you all think in the comments below. How does the Passport stack up to other vehicles that you might be shopping for? That's all for this video, and we'll catch you in the next.